All right, so today we're diving into something really cool. Lost hip-hop demos and lyrical mysteries.
Yeah.
Are you ready for this?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Okay. Buckle up because we're uncovering a fictionalized Lost demo from 1989, an unreleased concept album called Paradam
Wow.
by this like mysterious duo Black Eye.
Interesting. Have you ever heard of them?
I have not heard of them, and that's part of what makes these Lost demo narrative so fascinating, right? It's like, is this real? Is this a hoax? There's this immediate air of mystery. And in this case, it's presented as this time capsule, right? Like it's surfacing years later. It's almost like finding a message in a bottle from a hip hop scene that's both familiar and unlike anything we've heard before.
Totally. It's like, oh, is this going to be like everything else or totally different?
Yeah, exactly.
So what do we know about this BLCKI? Who are these guys?
Right. So the liner notes that we got, so we're talking on the mic and Dan behind the boards. And their sound, man, it's like they bottled the whole era.
Oh, is that right?
You got those Public Enemy vibes, that NWA energy.
I see that, yeah.
But then, hold up, there's this whole other layer.
Like what?
Like they were listening to Tribe Called Quest and De La Soul, too, you know?
No kidding. Blending styles like that, and that's pretty interesting.
It's wild. And we're talking real musicianship here.
Okay, so not just straight up samples then.
Some, sure, but you got these live instrumentals. Like, is that a guitar riff I hear? Even the jazz piano sprinkled in.
Wow. Okay, I'm intrigued. So how about we actually hear this thing?
Right. Let's drop the needle. The concept supposedly gives us a peek into the 1989 hip-hop scene, but listening to the lyrics, it feels way deeper than just music, you know?
Absolutely. It transcends the music itself.
Yeah.
You've got history woven in there, social commentary, mythology.
It's like the music, the words, they all kind of blend together, you know?
Right, like it's more than just listening.
Way more. The first track is track 2, Arm Lega, and it completely flips the script.
Yeah.
This track just grabs you.
It's got layers.
Seriously, the beat gets you going, but the lyrics, first thing that hits you, that opening line, why the F you trying to get funky on me? It's confrontational.
Yeah. But also kind of playful at the same time, you know?
For sure. It's like he's setting the tone.
Totally. Staking his claim. And that whole getting funky thing, it's not just about dancing.
No, definitely not.
It's like challenging his authenticity, his creativity, his whole place.
You said it. Like, don't mess with my vibe.
Exactly. And you know what else struck me about that? That connection to his place in the world. That makes me think about when he calls himself
Young Brio, heavy in this game. If you say a nigga name, God bless you.
Yes, that was a rewind moment for me.
It reminds us that these traditions didn't just stop changing after crossing the Atlantic, they evolved, taking in elements from other African cultures and creating these unique hybrids. Historically, a griot is a storyteller, a historian, keeper of knowledge, like for their people, their culture. He's putting himself in that lineage.
Wow, and making it his own, too. Which kind of leads us to that line you pointed out in your notes. Watch this knowledge make that wisdom go to work. And that hustle vibe, he keeps that going too.
Absolutely. The lines about roller skating on Saturday.
Balance. Although I gotta say, when he gets into order and how God planned it.
Rarely do I drink, but I'm a rock star. And look this, finna kick this shit like.
Things get kind of.
Oh yeah, it gets real.
Is it societal order? Yeah. Divine? His own code?
Right. It's up to you to decide. And I think that open-endedness is part of what makes this so engaging.
Totally. And speaking of things that got me thinking, that weaving of timelines gets even more pronounced on Kemet Electro Boogie. It's not your typical 80s sound.
No, it's in Kemet Electro Boogie that you really start to see their concept kind of take shape. In a way.
Okay.
The lyrics mention, you know, ideas of rebirth.
Right.
This call to knowledge. That feels really rooted in, you know, ancient wisdom. But then they filter it through this modern, like even futuristic lens.
Yeah.
I mean, Electro Boogie kind of says it all, you know, like a fusion of genres, just like how they're blending like old school hip hop with these elements that just feel ahead of their time.
Yeah, seriously. This artist isn't messing around. Just the title alone, right? Kemet, that's ancient Egypt right there in the name.
So right from the jump, we know we're in for something interesting. And then you get into the lyrics.
Back from the dead like Osiris.
Right. Like out of all the ancient Egyptian figures to reference, they went with Osiris.
Okay, so for those of us who might not be totally up on our ancient Egyptian mythology, why is it such a big deal that this artist is like putting themselves in his shoes?
So Osiris, he represented rebirth, the afterlife, but also civilization, knowledge, all that.
Right. And then they have that line about how
Rock was known as the Blues Brother. Me and my nigga gang had group cover. Ghetto mother.
before rock was known as the blues. It's like they're drawing a direct line right back through the blues to, well, everything that came after.
Exactly. They're connecting the dots in a way that you don't usually see.
But then he brings in George Clinton. He even shouts out
Jersey.
Clinton's Jersey roots. So, like, what's the connection there? How does George Clinton fit into all of this?
Well, it's really clever when you think about it. The artist is building this musical family tree, showing how all these seemingly different genres are actually related. The blues, funk, hip-hop, it's all connected.
It's like they're saying funk isn't just like party music. It comes from somewhere. It has roots. And it's not just like a history lesson or anything. It's more about claiming ownership over that legacy.
Yeah.
You know? It's a thread that runs through all of Paradam,
Okay.
but it takes on different forms.
Okay.
Like on track 4.
Yeah, DNA definitely shifts the mood to something way more introspective. Like we're actually getting a peek into the soul of this unnamed emissary, their own identity, you know, ancestry, the weight of what's been, I guess, passed down to them.
Yeah, and that DNA thing, it's not just a catchy hook.
Right. Okay, so it starts with this kind of chanting repetition, DNA, 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 D-A-N-N-N-A. It's definitely catchy, but I don't know, feels very deliberate, you know?
Oh, absolutely. It's like kind of like how DNA itself is this repetitive sequence of base pairs, building blocks, creating a pattern.
Whoa, yeah, I get that. Okay, but then the lyrics shift, and we're suddenly thrown into the story about a buzzard, a preacher, and a piano.
Pretty classic take on inheritance, right? Like we get our talents, our quirks, all those little things passed down through our DNA.
But hold on. We go from this personal story to talk of tribes, revolution. Now it feels much bigger than just individual traits.
Right. Now, the song seems to be suggesting that our capacity for self-reliance, for independence, for forging our own path, that's also encoded in our DNA. But it's not just individual anymore. It's collective, like a shared history, a cultural DNA.
Okay, so then we're introduced to a new character, Henry, this steel-driving man in West Virginia.
Oh, yes. John Henry.
Everyone remembers John Henry. It's like American folklore. What's he doing in these pieces?
It's more than just strength, though. That's a big part of it.
Right.
John Henry's story, it's always been about man versus machine.
Okay.
But deeper, especially for a lot of people, it represents this struggle against being overlooked, exploited.
Because technology is replacing human jobs.
Exactly. And for some, it goes deeper than that, especially within the African-American community.
Right.
John Henry becomes this symbol of resilience.
Pushing back against being pushed down.
Yes.
Powerful. And then that line.
There's so much intensity in those words. Henry's DNA, this inner strength, can't be ignored, and it demands to be recognized. It makes you think about how we as a society respond to people when they tap into that kind of raw power, you know?
Yeah, it's a powerful image. Okay, just when you think you've got the song figured out, it throws a real curveball. We meet a Lou White Red who desires Henry's DNA. That came out of nowhere.
Right. It's unexpected, but so clever. On the surface, it seems like a play on attraction, maybe even reproduction, wanting to merge with someone, literally. But thinking about all the other themes we've discussed, it becomes much deeper than that.
Mind blown. So let's talk about Black Death.
Okay.
Which is, it's
a heavy one.
It's a heavy one.
It is heavy.
Yeah.
All they want is black blood.
I mean, Black Death isn't just a song title.
Right.
It's this loaded phrase
Yeah.
that carries the weight of historical trauma.
It's a doozy.
Oh, yeah.
It's got the kind of language that'll make you shift in your seat. But there's one phrase in particular that really stuck with me, black blood. It pops up again and again, almost like a haunting refrain, like one line that really hit me, says, all they want is black blood. We all know what that does.
More water for the root, nigga.
I mean, that line, it hit me like a punch to the gut. What do you make of that phrase, that black blood, and why do you think it's repeated so much?
Yeah, no, it's definitely a powerful choice of words. And you're right to pick up on that repetition. It's definitely intentional. It's not by accident. This isn't just about violence just in a vacuum. Black blood, it evokes, this deep, historically rooted pain, right? When we think about the lasting legacy of the slave trade,
Right.
the ways in which it continues to shape our world today.
Right.
It's this stark reminder of the ways Black lives have been, devalued and targeted and literally spilled throughout history.
And then it gets even more complex, because the lyrics also have this fascinating contrast, right? Like one minute you've got lines praising Africa, talking about
Aloe vera daily so my skin don't get pale. Then she got the fire from my fingernail.
almost like this moment of self-care in the middle of all this darkness. And then bam, right alongside that, you've got references to violence, you've got drugs. What do you think the artist is trying to achieve by putting these two seemingly opposite elements right next to each other?
Well, it's definitely a deliberate jarring. It's meant to make you stop and think. Yeah. And by placing those contrasting images side by side, the lyrics, they kind of force us to confront these contradictions that exist within society, maybe even within ourselves. This could be the artist's way of expressing, just the inner turmoil, the anger and frustration that comes with living with those contradictions every day, the desire for peace and self-love constantly bumping up against, the harsh realities of systemic oppression.
It's like they're trying to hold those two realities in their mind at the same time, and it's creating this real tension in the music, almost like they're daring the listener to look away. It makes me wonder, is the intent here to shock? Or is it more about, just expressing the emotional roller coaster that goes along with these lived experiences?
It could be all of the above. Remember, art often reflects the complexities of just the human experience. And these lyrics, they seem to be grappling with some very raw, very real emotions.
Yeah. And speaking of grappling with complexity, there's this moment in the song where they mention two really interesting figures, Joe Jackson and Mr. Magic.
Right. Yeah, no, that's a really astute observation. Both Joe Jackson and Mr. Magic represent a very, very specific kind of success within a system that historically has marginalized Black individuals. Joe Jackson, the patriarch of the Jackson family, built a musical empire. Mr. Magic, a pioneering DJ, rose to become a cultural icon. And their presence in these lyrics, it adds another layer to this whole exploration of Black identity.
And then there's that line that
it's like if Flavor wrote a paper on what acid does. I give a fuck what kind of class it was. I'm why they wrote the rules.
does. You feel so playful, and almost subversive, especially compared to the heaviness of everything else we've encountered in the song so far.
It's brilliant. It's like the artist is kind of like winking at us, like he's like, don't take everything so seriously. This one line injects this much needed moment of levity, but it's also more than just a joke. You have Flavor Flav, known for his larger-than-life persona, his connection to Public Enemy's very politically charged music, and suddenly he's thrust into this absurdly academic setting. It's unexpected, it's thought-provoking, and it reminds us that even the most serious topics can be, explored through these really unconventional lenses.
Absolutely. But then Paradigm throws a curveball with track 6, Word to ISIS.
Okay, wow. Definitely different.
Yeah, a complete shift from the societal to the personal.
Right. This one is all about longing, desire.
And so beautifully intertwined with these affirmations of Black female beauty. And again, with the repetition. But it's not that same defiance as before. It's something else.
It's yearning. And the way those first few lines hit, with the fire and water imagery.
And this is what we comes to do.
It's almost like the song is talking about trying to revive something that's maybe been neglected for too long.
Yeah, and water usually symbolizes life, renewal, but it can't even penetrate the stone.
Right, exactly.
Which makes me think about like emotional barriers,
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
And there's this undeniable sensuality to it, too.
Honey, check it out, you got me mesmerized. The fat ass thighs you carry around like it's light work.
Bold.
It is. It's a reclamation, a rejection of those limiting beauty standards.
Is this where we see the heart of Black Eye?
Yeah, I think so. I think Word to Isis reveals this whole other dimension to them.
Okay.
Right? It showcases vulnerability, range. They're not just delivering social commentary.
Right.
And it reminds us that even within struggle, there's love, joy, this yearning for connection.
Yeah.
And I think that juxtaposition of Word to Isis with Black Death, the raw intensity of that.
Yeah.
It speaks volumes about, the duality of the Black experience, honestly.
Well, what's interesting? In each of these snippets, we've encountered a different voice. It's like we're looking at a mosaic, each piece beautiful on its own. But when you put them all together, you start to see a larger picture emerge.
I love that analogy. It's a powerful reminder that these narratives are never one-dimensional.
Right, and then we go to track 7, Rotten Watermelon, and it's like, hold on, what?
New tapes of the 89. You can get it anytime.
This one feels like a free-flowing stream of consciousness, almost like a cipher just caught on tape.
Yeah.
But even in that seeming chaos, they drop references to legends like KRS-One.
It's true.
They're pulling from everywhere. James Brown even dropping a line about
Eating sushi with a Sophie. Lamping with that motherfucking Koji Low. My man, the Koji. Asked her what she name, she said Veloci.
it's a beautiful mess of influences all blended together, which adds another layer to that 1989 authenticity. Or is it all just part of the fabrication?
It's brilliant, though, because they weave in these really familiar names, and it further blurs the line between reality and the narrative they've created. It makes you question everything.
Yeah.
Are these genuine shout outs, or are they these like calculated Easter eggs?
Right, yeah.
Just to like enhance the whole Lost Album illusion. It's all part of the game they're playing. And what's so fascinating is how they use the sound of a specific time, 1989, to make that point, right?
For sure.
It's like they're saying, what if we could actually go back and inject these ideas, these other perspectives? How would things be different?
No doubt.
No.
So here's the $1 million question. If Paradigm actually dropped in 89, how do you think it would have been received?
It's tough to say. On the one hand, it's so ahead of its time. The production, the lyrics, the whole vibe. It's like nothing else out there.
But then again, 89 was a pretty amazing year for hip-hop. De La Soul was just coming up. So would Paradigm have gotten lost in the shuffle?
Possibly. It might have been too raw, too real. For mainstream radio, at least.
But who knows? It could have blown up underground, become this cult classic, passed from hand to hand on cassette tapes.
And that's the power of a good mystery. It keeps you thinking long after the music stops.
It really does. So next time you press play,
Yeah.
on your favorite album, whatever it is, remember, it's not just music. It's a whole world of possibilities right there waiting for you.
That's the truth. Well, that was something else.
Until next time, right.